Behold, Big Eye Chungus. Where can you get it? Exalted Funerals website. I'll have a link down in the description. It's 20 pages. Planet X Games. Levi Combs. Art designed by Cheese Hasselberger. I believe the stats are for first edition D&D, but you can use it obviously for any OSR game. It was a successful Kickstarter. All new zine dedicated to the most badass monster to ever float through the halls of a dungeon. Cool piece of art there with it cut out. I do think it's funny. This Big Eye Chungus has got kind of normal looking teeth, but still cool cover, and I like the colors and stuff on it. So an introduction to how kind of they are. This guy's got some hot. He's got hot foot going on there. Something's happening to his feet, so that's detrimental to him. And it says the lowdown on your friendly neighborhood Chungus, telling you about how big they are, how much they weigh, how long they live, what they look like, their big mouths, their eye stalks, and how smart they are, and how they're pretty much cunning masterminds. Why are Big Eye Chunguses so badass? This sentence is great. Big Eye Chungus are literally floating player character death machines capable of mowing down entire adventuring parties with absolutely no mercy. So yeah, they're just the ultimate jerk. And of course, since they can float, they're anti-magic. Center Big Eye can shut down spells. It has the eye stalks with all their different eye beams. They're just nasty. And I would always like killing the one in the Capcom D&D Tower of Doom video game because it was such a great fight. So why every single Big Eye Chungus is a dick? Well, they're complete and utter narcissists. They're ultimate tyrants. They believe that their kind was meant to rule everything around them, and they're heartless dictators. They are not native to wherever the player characters exist, so they have an alien type mind. And they believe that they're far superior to all other beings, even other beings that are of the same power level as them, be it wizards or whatever. And they are just the ultimate users. Everything around them is just a means to an end. They'll just use whoever, whatever to get what they want. And then you've got a section here on variants, starting with the Void Chungus. It's pretty much a large sphere of black nothingness. Encircling its perimeter are 10 small shining pinpoints of light, which float amidst its nothingness. So what's cool about these pinpoints of light is that they will hit you with an imprisonment spell beam, and then you will be imprisoned inside the eye. Each one of the eyes is a prison. And whenever you encounter one, there could already be creatures in there. So you roll a d10, and that's how many of the eyes are already occupied with imprisoned creatures. So they're very nasty. They are immune to a lot of stuff. A gate spell could be cast upon it that might be able to destroy it straight out, but it can have some other terrible effects if you try to get rid of it through certain different means. And of course, you've got your stats at the back there. Nether Chungus. So this one is in essence an experimentation in dark sorceries in the deepest breeding pits of the lower planes. It has become infused with demonic essence. It's extremely full of rage and hatred, and it loves misery, torment, and pain. So they were conceived as shock troops against forces from the upper planes, and as you can see, they have this kind of chitinous kind of plating to them, rust-colored. Its mouth has a half dozen rows of razor-sharp teeth inside, and then each one of these eyes that are around it are alight with witch fire of green malice and unending bitterness. And then, of course, you've got your selection of rays that will try to kill you. So a very nasty looking one. I like the forked tongue on that one. Hive Mind Chungus is very interesting. Funny piece of art here. You got all these little tiny ones. And so when they're also called maybe a Swarm Chungus or a Chungus Swarm, and they're typically encountered in groups of 4d10. So think about, okay, 4d10, you roll up something. Let's say you get 20. And they don't have any eye stalks. They get little tiny mouths. But what they do have is they're about the size of an ostrich egg. They have 4 different rays they can cast, right? Cause light wounds, charm person, charm monster, fear, sleep, and telekinesis. So what it does is it all of them at one time cast the same pretty much spell. So if a Chungus swarm feels direct force is necessary, it might unleash a cause light wounds beam en masse, literally obliterating its foe from a dozen different directions. Other times, the swarm might favor subtlety and use its sleep or charm eyes instead. Saving throws are made against each individual Chungus beam. So if you get hit with 7 Hive Mind Chungus attacks, you have to make 7 saving throws. Just brutal. So imagine being hit with a whole bunch of cause light wounds. You're going to go down probably pretty quick. You got the Chungus of the Waste. This is a big, bloated, nasty, chitinous, rocky hide, Big Eye Chungus. and it lives probably out in like a desolate wasteland. It's got some pretty nasty eye rays. It's not as smart as other Big Eye Chunguses, but it's got some really like necrotic blast, ruinous beam, which is pretty much like a beam that hits you with a rust monster tentacle attack. That's terrible. And then it tells of a story of a wizard here that saw one, and he wasn't aware if it was maybe a new breed of them or it was just a singular Big Eye Chungus that was like this, but he quickly teleported out so not to have to fight it. So that makes sense. Then you got some gas spores here. They're not exactly Big Eye Chunguses, and they're a little bit unclear as to what created them. They may be the result of a Big Eye Chungus. Maybe the Big Eye Chunguses turned into them. Maybe there has to do something with mycondid colonies. But they also use them. They're explosive. They're full of gases, and of course they hover as well. So there is a connection somewhere that could be made between Big Eye Chunguses and gas spores. Next is the Iron Chungus. As you can see, very cool design in this crystal-like fashion here with these different crystal-like eyes floating around. The main eye can cast prismatic ray every round, and it's very different than the other ones, and it has some pretty nasty abilities in their rays as well. Ice Storm, Confusion, Phantasmal Killer, Shatter, all pretty nasty, slow. And then you got the Blind Albino Chungus. No piece of art, which is unfortunate, but still it's a cool one. It's also called a Ghost Chungus. They are pretty much possibly mutations or freakish experiments, and that have kind of gotten out of hand. So they're completely white. It looks just like its kin, but its outer carapace and each one of its eyes are a milky white. Instead of 10 eye stalks, the creature only possesses 1d4+1, all of which are stunted or shriveled to some degree. Its mouth is a huge oversized gash across its body filled with jagged teeth. So pretty nasty. They're blind, but they still have some sort of sense of echolocation. And then it's got some pretty normal attacks here: Charm Person, Telekinesis, Flesh to Stone, Disintegrate, Death Ray. Not great. And then here's a little bit of maybe a little bit of lore here about the Great Chungus, or the Celestial Orb, also called the Eye in the Sky. Great song, by the way. Death Planet. And think of it as a planetoid-sized aberration of the natural order. So a huge, great, big-eyed Chungus that floats in space in the cosmos and is, in essence, a planet unto itself. And possibly, who knows when, but every maybe thousands of years or so, a continent-wide eye opens and it emits a destructive eye beam capable of destroying other celestial bodies. Pretty nasty. It can also shoot out all these spores to go and possibly populate maybe other worlds with big-eyed chunguses. It's a cool thing that could possibly be expanded upon in your game. The Death Chungus, they hate being undead, so they probably wouldn't do that to themselves. They're mostly used as watchdogs or protectors over a valuable treasure. A lot of their eye stalks don't work anymore because they're dead. Their central eye now casts a Doom Gaze instead of the Anti-Magic Ray, and that's going to make your saving throws have to be rolled twice, and you take the lower of the two. They're not as smart, and because they don't have as many eye beams working, eye stalks working, this could be a Big Eye Chungus you could throw at probably a lower level group of characters. The Clockwork Chungus can see everything. Doesn't matter what it is, it can see it. And it's exactly what you would think it would be, a Clockwork Chungus, full of multicolored glass lenses, gears, metal plates, tubes, wires, and all sorts of things like that. The ultimate in watchdog protection, in essence. And it's got some pretty nasty eye rays, too. Lightning Bolt, Polymorph Other, Rusting Blast. So it's in essence a ranged attack like a rust monster tentacle hitting you. A Weathering Beam, very nasty. And then we have a great section here on Big Eye Chungus layers, letting you know that Big Eye Chunguses, they don't care about like pits, ravines, crevices, things like that. They can just float over them. But of course, for the characters, that's going to be a big problem. They're going to constantly be trying to figure out how to get over these chasms, and they don't really care. They'll just float however. They also will use their Disintegrate Beam to great effect. Let's say they've got a bunch of thralls, they've subjugated a bunch of goblins or kobolds or something. They'll make murder holes and slits for long-range weapons for those kobolds, in case any intruders come in, to give them the upper hand at shooting ranged attacks. Or they'll use their Disintegrate ray in order to help them with traps. Think about a tunnel, and the Big Eye Chungus knows that maybe there's an underwater river or something like that, some sort of water source underneath the ground. They'll just disintegrate that wall where right beside the water and the tunnel, and just flood that tunnel to try to murder your character. So very cool, just giving you a kind of overview of how their layers would be. There's some random things you can find in a Big Eye Chungus's lair. They don't like the taste of gnomes, maybe a wizard that's been turned to stone, some cool stuff like that. And then Big Eye Chungus tactics, how they fight in combat. They would rather not fight, but if they must, they want to use their minions and servitors to fight for them. It'll always try to use its range pretty much at its advantage. It doesn't really want to get into melee attacks, obviously. I love this piece of art here too. When it's wounded and it has the opportunity, it'll try to flee to fight another day. And again, the movement and distance are going to be key to its Big Eye Chungus's tactics, trying to stay out of range of other attacks. And they're, of course, very wary of magic, using their central eye to nullify the spell arsenal of its foes. So they know that that's something that might be able to take them down, so they're going to try to stop it. And then here's a great thing here. 10 impolite and downright rude things a Big Eye Chungus would say before it kills or enslaves or petrifies you. And just some great ones here. Your time has come. Worms and vermin will gnaw your bones in the dark. Insects will loot your flesh to feed their young. Love the mustache and the goatee and the unibrow. Very fun. Humans, bah! How many times must I crush these cockroaches before they scatter for good? And let's see another good one. You and your friends shall make a fine addition to my coterie of slaves. Foolish little creature, you scuttle about like vermin in search of what? Gold, magic, glory? You'll die here and no one will remember you. So some cool ways to help you roleplay a Big Eye Chungus when they're taunting you to your death. And then Big Eye Chungus adventure hooks. Some pretty standard stuff here. Maybe a meteor crashes and a Big Eye Chungus comes out. Maybe there's one that lives in the wild hinterland areas, and it has a bunch of retinue of creatures and guardian monsters who have been lured into its vicinity and then charmed into its service. Maybe the characters find a bunch of circular tunnels leading into subterranean depths, and they feel the strange, worn, smooth feel of the walls, and they know that something's just not right. Maybe somebody in town shows up, that kind of gaunt, starving man that tells people that there's an underground empire ruled by a giant fiery eye, where enslaved creatures are forced to endlessly toil as they dig in the depths. Maybe they've been cultivating gas spores in a vast chasm through its charmed myconid servants, and you never know, those could all go up at one time with a huge chain reaction of a thunderous explosion. And then, of course, this is a good one here. A Big Eye Chungus is known to lair in a desolate wasteland, and they've not really dealt with anybody, so kind of keep it to themselves, but maybe some heroes went seeking its loot and try to destroy it. They do not come back, but what does come back is the Big Eye Chungus. He floats into town, vaporizes the mayor, and enslaves a half-dozen townsfolk. Furthermore, it has demanded the town hand over one person a month for the affront to its privacy, and says any resistance shall be met with seizing 10 townsfolk rather than one. Does anyone dare confront this murderous monster? And if so, what will be left of them? So there it is, Big Eye Chungus. It's a fun, kind of lighthearted release zine about the Big Eye Chungus, some cool variants. I really like the section on their tactics as well as their layers. Makes you think exactly how they would fight and how they would, obviously defend their lair using their special eye stalks and their beam attacks. So there it is, Big Eye Chungus. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, all that stuff you've heard many times before. Appreciate everybody joining the channel, and look out for the next video.